I thought I had found my perfect relationship with Ryan, charming, loving, everything I'd ever dreamed of. And when I met his identical twin brother Ethan, I was thrilled that he seemed to genuinely like me too. For months, I believed Ethan was just being the supportive brother-in-law, always there to help, always so caring and protective. But what I discovered about these two brothers changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the person sleeping next to me every night. The truth was so twisted, so unbelievable, that it didn't just destroy my relationship, it made me question my entire reality. If you think you know where this story is going, trust me, you don't. Hit that subscribe button because this story will mess with your mind in ways you never expected. My name is Sophia, I'm 24, and I work as a nurse at Boston General Hospital. 8 months ago, I met Ryan Mitchell at a coffee shop near the hospital during my lunch break. He was this incredibly handsome guy with dark wavy hair, piercing blue eyes, and this smile that could light up an entire room. What drew me to him wasn't just his looks though, it was how genuinely interested he seemed in everything I said, how he remembered tiny details about my day, and how he made me feel like I was the most fascinating person in the world. Our relationship moved fast, maybe faster than it should have, but everything felt so right. Ryan was attentive, romantic, and seemed completely devoted to me. He'd bring me flowers after my long shifts, cook dinner when I was too exhausted to function, and hold me while I told him about the difficult cases at the hospital. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in a relationship where I was truly seen and cherished. About 2 months into dating Ryan, he told me he wanted me to meet someone very important to him, his twin brother, Ethan. "We're incredibly close," Ryan explained. "He's my best friend, my business partner, basically my other half. If you're going to be part of my life, you need to know that Ethan and I are a package deal." I was nervous about meeting Ethan. I'd heard stories about protective brothers who intimidate their siblings' partners, and the fact that they were twins and business partners made me wonder if I'd ever really have Ryan to myself. But when Ryan brought me to their shared apartment, they lived in the same building but had separate units. Ethan couldn't have been more welcoming. The resemblance between them was striking but not identical. They had the same bone structure, the same piercing blue eyes, and similar builds, but their personalities were completely different. Where Ryan was outgoing and spontaneous, Ethan was thoughtful and reserved. Where Ryan was quick to laugh and joke around, Ethan had this quiet intensity that made you feel like he was really listening to every word you said. What surprised me most was how much effort Ethan put into making me feel comfortable and included. He'd ask about my work, remember details about my friends and family, and even started texting me directly sometimes, usually to coordinate surprises for Ryan or to check if I needed anything when Ryan was traveling for work. "I've never seen Ryan this happy," Ethan told me one evening when Ryan was in the bathroom during a dinner at their favorite restaurant. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He's a different person when he's with you." I felt so grateful to have Ethan's approval and support. Dating someone with a twin brother could have been complicated and awkward, but Ethan made it feel natural and easy. But looking back now, I realize that everything I thought I understood about their relationship, about Ethan's kindness, and about Ryan himself was built on lies so elaborate that I'm still untangling them. What were Ryan and Ethan really hiding behind their seemingly perfect brotherhood? The first sign that something was off came about 3 months into my relationship with Ryan. I was working a double shift at the hospital, and Ryan was supposed to pick me up at 11 p.m. But when I walked outside, exhausted and ready to collapse, I saw Ryan's car with someone behind the wheel who looked exactly like him. "Ethan?" I said, confused, as I approached the passenger side. "Hey Sophia," Ethan smiled, but there was something different about his expression, softer, more intimate than his usual reserved demeanor. "Ryan had a work emergency, so he asked me to pick you up. Hope that's okay." It was sweet that Ryan had arranged for his brother to get me, but something felt strange about the whole interaction. Ethan seemed nervous, almost guilty. And there was the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention longer than necessary, with an intensity that made my cheeks flush. During the drive to my apartment, we talked more openly than we ever had before. Ethan asked about my childhood, my dreams, what I wanted out of life, questions that felt more like first date conversation than casual brother-in-law chat. "You know," Ethan said as we pulled up to my building, "Ryan is lucky to have you. I hope he knows that." There was something in his tone that made me look at him more carefully. In the dim light of the car, I could have sworn I saw longing in his eyes. But that was impossible, right? Ethan was Ryan's twin brother. He was just being protective and caring. That incident started a pattern that continued for weeks. Ryan would have work emergencies or last-minute meetings, and Ethan would step in to drive me places, help me with errands, or just keep me company when I was feeling lonely. At first, I thought it was incredibly thoughtful of both brothers, Ryan for arranging backup support, and Ethan for being so willing to help. But Ethan's behavior began to shift in subtle ways that made me increasingly uncomfortable. He'd stand closer to me when we talked. His hand would linger on mine when he helped me out of the car. He started texting me more frequently, and the conversations became more personal and intimate. One evening, when Ryan was supposedly at a client dinner that was running late, Ethan invited me over to his apartment. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't. It would destroy everything." My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, we heard Ryan's key in the door. Ethan immediately shifted away from me, grabbed the remote, and pretended to be fully absorbed in the movie. Ryan walked in, kissed me hello, and acted like it was perfectly normal to find his girlfriend and twin brother having an intimate movie night. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial about these two brothers. What was Ethan trying to tell me, and why did Ryan seem completely unbothered by our obvious closeness? The turning point came during Ryan's birthday celebration. He had planned this elaborate dinner party at their apartment, inviting all our mutual friends, some of his work colleagues, and a few family members I'd never met before. I spent the afternoon helping prepare, and I couldn't help but notice how seamlessly Ethan and I worked together in the kitchen, finishing each other's sentences, moving around each other like we'd been cooking together for years. "You two are like a married couple," laughed Jessica, one of Ryan's coworkers, as she watched us coordinate the meal preparation. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment, but when I glanced at Ethan, he was smiling in a way that made my stomach flutter with confusion. The evening started perfectly. Ryan was in his element, charming and entertaining, making sure everyone had a great time. But about 2 hours into the party, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Ryan was talking to his Uncle Mike near the kitchen, and I overheard Uncle Mike say, "You know, son, I still can't tell you boys apart sometimes. Even after all these years." Ryan laughed. "That's the point, Uncle Mike. We've been switching places since we were kids." I froze. Switching places? What did that mean? I tried to push the comment out of my mind, telling myself it was just a joke about childhood pranks. But as the evening continued, I started paying closer attention to Ryan and Ethan's interactions. They had this way of looking at each other that seemed almost coordinated. Like they were silently communicating about something. Later that night, after all the guests had left, I was helping clean up when Ryan announced he was exhausted and going to bed. "Ethan, can you make sure Sophia gets home safely?" he asked, kissing my forehead. I'm dead on my feet. As Ryan disappeared into his bedroom, Ethan and I finished cleaning in relative silence. But when we were done, instead of offering to drive me home, Ethan turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before, vulnerable and desperate. "Sophia, I can't do this anymore." "Do what?" "Pretend that I don't." He stopped himself, running his hands through his hair in a gesture that was so familiar, so exactly like something Ryan would do. "Ethan, you're scaring me." "I'm not Ethan." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "Tonight, when I was talking to you in the kitchen, when we were laughing together, when I was watching you light up talking about your patients, that wasn't Ethan. That was me." Ryan. My world tilted on its axis. "That's impossible." Ryan went to bed. I saw him. That was Ethan pretending to be me. We've been switching places sometimes. To spend time with you." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "How often?" "Sophia, I need you to sit down." "How often, Ryan?" His face crumpled. "About half the time we've been together." But why were they switching places, and which brother was I actually falling in love with? The room was spinning. Everything I thought I knew about the past 6 months was crumbling around me. I sank onto the couch, trying to process what Ryan had just told me. "Half the time?" I whispered. "What does that mean?" Ryan sat down across from me, careful to maintain distance. "It started as a stupid joke. The first time we switched was about a month after we started dating. I had food poisoning, but we had plans to go to your friend's art gallery opening. Ethan offered to go as me so you wouldn't be disappointed. And I didn't notice? You were so focused on the artwork, and Ethan had studied everything about you, about us, about our conversations. He pulled it off perfectly." Ryan's voice was filled with shame. "But something happened that night." "What?" "Ethan came home and told me he understood why I was so crazy about you. He said spending time with you made him feel more alive than he'd felt in years." My hands were shaking. "So you decided to share me?" "It wasn't supposed to be like that." Ryan stood up, pacing now. "At first, we only switched for practical reasons, when one of us was sick, or had work conflicts, or needed to be in 2 places at once. But Sophia, Ethan started falling for you. And the more time he spent with you as me, the more he felt like he was living the life he'd always wanted. What about you? How could you be okay with this? Ryan stopped pacing and looked at me with an expression that broke my heart. Because I was falling for you too. Both versions of us were. When Ethan would come back from your dates and tell me about your conversations, about how you laughed at his jokes, about how happy you seemed, it was like experiencing our relationship through his eyes made me love you even more. I felt sick. So when I thought I was getting to know you better, becoming closer to you, sometimes I was actually bonding with Ethan? Yes. And when Ethan was being the supportive brother-in-law, sometimes that was actually you? Yes. How was I supposed to tell the difference? You weren't. That was the point. Ryan's voice cracked. Sophia, we never meant for it to go this far. We never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. You both did. I stood up, anger finally cutting through the shock. I fell in love with, isn't it? How do I know which memories are real? How do I know which conversations actually happened with you? But the most terrifying question was yet to come. Which brother was I actually in love with? I need to talk to Ethan, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Right now. Ryan's face went pale. Sophia, please, let me explain everything first. No. I need to hear his side of this insanity. Ryan reluctantly walked to Ethan's bedroom door and knocked. Ethan, we need to talk. All of us. When Ethan emerged, I could immediately see the guilt written across his face. He looked at me with such genuine anguish that I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. How long were you planning to keep this up? I demanded, looking between both brothers. Ethan sat down heavily. We weren't planning anything, Sophia. It just evolved. Evolved? You mean your elaborate scheme to manipulate me evolved? That's not what this was, Ethan said quietly. At least, not for me. Then what was it? Ethan looked at Ryan, then back at me. It was the first time in my life that I felt like I could be the version of myself that I actually wanted to be. When I was with you as Ryan, I could be confident, spontaneous, romantic. I could be the man I always wished I was. So you used me as therapy? I fell in love with you, Ethan said simply. Completely, desperately, hopelessly in love with you. Ryan made a sound of protest. Ethan. No, Ryan, she deserves to know the truth. Ethan turned back to me. Every moment I spent with you, whether I was pretending to be Ryan or just being myself as Ethan, I was falling deeper. And I know that makes me a terrible person, but I can't take it back now. I looked between them, these two identical faces that had become so precious to me, and I felt my heart breaking in ways I didn't know were possible. Which one of you took me to the hospital when I had that panic attack last month? That was me, Ryan said. As myself. Who stayed with me all night when my grandmother died? Me, Ethan whispered. But I was pretending to be Ryan. Who told me you loved me for the first time? Both brothers looked at each other, then at me. That was me, Ryan said. But I felt it first, Ethan finished. I felt it months before either of us said it. I stood up, overwhelmed by the complexity of emotions coursing through me. I need time to think. Sophia, please, Ryan reached for my hand. We can work through this. Can we? Because I don't even know who I'm in love with anymore. The truth was, I was in love with both of them, and that realization would change everything. 3 days later, I called them both and asked them to meet me at the park where Ryan and I had our first official date. I needed neutral ground for the conversation that would determine all of our futures. They arrived separately, which I appreciated. I needed to see them as individuals, not as the unit they'd always presented themselves as. I've been thinking, I began, and I need to understand something. When you were switching places, were you comparing notes? Planning what to say to me? Coordinating your personalities? Ryan shook his head. Never. We made a rule early on that what happened during each other's time with you stayed private. We didn't want to contaminate the experience. So each of you was genuinely being yourself when you were with me? Yes, Ethan said. The only difference was that sometimes I was being myself while pretending to have Ryan's history with you. I took a deep breath. Here's what I've realized. I didn't fall in love with one person pretending to be two different people. I fell in love with two different people who happened to share the same name and face sometimes. Both brothers stared at me. Ryan, when you're being yourself, you're adventurous and passionate and you make me feel like I can conquer the world. Ethan, when you're being yourself, you're thoughtful and gentle and you make me feel completely safe and understood. I need both of